Hello and welcome to Jungling Tips with Commando Yi. This is the second video in an advanced jungling video series focused on strategies. A common question that came up amongst the feedback to the last video was that it's great to be able to gank lanes that are doing well, but how would you manage a lane that is losing? Now, as mentioned in the previous video, your gank priority is to only go for the ganks that are most likely to be successful, and this generally means abandoning lanes that are doing poorly. There are, however, some exceptions to this. So let's take a look at a few examples of why ganks tend to fail in lanes that are losing, and later we'll take a look at when and how they can work. Now normally I would not attempt the ganks that you're about to see here, as it is a great way to lose a game. But we're going to do it anyway for League Science. The enemy Jace is beating our Jace pretty hard in the top lane. He's got him on the ropes, which means our top laner is trying to be as passive as possible to pick up whatever farm he can without dying. In order for a gank to succeed, you must be well coordinated with your ally, who must lure the enemy champion into diving him, or you as the jungler will gank the enemy champion from behind for overextending, and your ally will follow up to secure the kill. This is generally not possible in a lane that is losing. Seeing our Jace recall, I decide to gank us off and head back towards the jungle. Now our Jace has been getting zoned for quite a while, so when he sees the enemy Jace back up, he takes this opportunity to hang around and farm some minions. This turned out to be a bait by the enemy Jace, who uses this opportunity to kill our top laner. Trying to make the best of a bad situation, I try to take out the enemy Jace, despite knowing that the odds of getting him on my own and getting out alive are pretty low. It's basically a bad gamble that I committed to here. Now while I do manage to get the enemy Jace, he's getting 2 kills while my top laner got nothing. Which means this lane just got even harder for our top lane. Now normally I wouldn't gank this lane again, but we're going to do it anyway to see more of what it's like to gank a losing lane. I go in again for a gank on the enemy Jace. This time the odds are a little better as I'm coming in from behind. However, my ult is down and it requires a follow-up from my ally to pull it off. Only my top laner is so scared and demoralized at this point that he just wants to keep as much distance as he can from himself and his lane opponent. So the gank fails again as I'm basically on my own. Now you may remember from the previous video an example with a gank on a Rengar up top that gets our Fiora ahead by quite a bit. Later in that game, the enemy jungle Riven tries to salvage the lane. I'm guessing Rengar was pinging for help and yelling at her to come help him since he's falling behind. Now while Riven and Rengar combined may be able to take down a fed Fiora, unfortunately for them I was waiting in the bushes. And the moment I see Riven coming in, I go to dive the enemy Rengar, getting our Fiora a kill. Riven panics and attempts to dive us anyway, but I'm tanking all the turret shots, which allows Fiora to pick up another kill. Now while this was a sloppy example of a counter gank as it depended on the jungle Riven panicking to get both kills, counter ganks can be much more foolproof, taking advantage of what looks like a good ganking opportunity. If you're ganking a losing lane, the enemy jungler can use his own fed ally as bait to set up a brutal counter gank. If you do get hit with one of these ganks, it creates a massive gold spike for the enemy team and puts both you and your ally behind. So in summary, the problem with ganking a losing lane is that you're attempting a gank for an ally who's probably demoralized and hesitant, which makes him unable to provide an adequate follow-up for any of your ganks. This is not something to get upset about, as you should not expect someone who's losing their lane to be able to follow up properly. The last thing they want to do is die some more so they get blamed for the loss. If you gank anyway, the odds are in the opponent's favor due to the lack of coordination between you and your ally. And if you die in the process, you've just made things that much worse for the lane. Lastly, when attempting to gank a fed opponent, if the enemy jungler delivers a brutal counter gank, it will set both you and your ally massively behind and create a massive gold spike in the enemy team's favor. Not to mention the many objectives they can go after since they've removed 2 of you off the map. Now as I mentioned earlier, there is an exception to this rule of not ganking a lane that is losing. And the exception is when absolutely no coordination is required to pull it off. That is, you are strong enough to take out the fed enemy champion on your own. This typically means one of 2 things. You must either be a champion who scales better than the fed opponent champion, or you must be a super fed bruiser or assassin jungler. Now, while tanks may be able to kill champions over the course of a long fight, they're simply not suited for killing fed enemy champions in lane, as they do not have the damage to kill them before they can reach the safety of their turret. This means if you are a tank jungler, this option is simply not available to you, and your efforts would be better spent getting other lanes ahead. Melee carries are able to achieve this through raw damage. They are typically not the best gankers, so they can reach this point through farming the jungle, while bruisers or assassins who have substantially stronger ganks must get ahead by ganking successfully several times and build damage items that allow them to burst down fed enemy champions in lane before they can reach their turret. It's easier to observe this through itemization. If you're rushing items like Randuin, Sunfire Cape, and Spirit Visage, forget about ganking champions that are ahead, as you're either a tank or building too tanky to take down fed opponents on your own before they escape. If you've built the Warrior or Magus upgrade to your Machete and you have a Brutalizer, Last Whisper, Rabadons, or Zhonya's, you're a high burst bruiser or assassin jungler, which will allow you to take out fed enemy champions in lane before they can escape. If you're building items like the Devourer upgrade, Blade of the Ruined King, or Infinity Edge, you're a melee carry jungler who will be able to kill fed enemy laners through raw damage, though you will probably need the red buff or wait for them to blow their abilities to make up for what will probably be your lack of crowd control abilities. In order to avoid a counter gank by the enemy jungler, do not commit to such ganks unless you know for sure that the other jungler is not nearby. Only commit if you got vision of the enemy jungler moments earlier, indicating that they are elsewhere on the map, where you run the risk of getting destroyed in a brutal counter gank. In summary, it's best not to gank lanes that are losing and focus your efforts on getting your strongest lanes ahead, as this will provide the best odds of winning. Lost lanes are hard to salvage due to poor coordination and risks of counter ganks. However, if you are a carry jungler that outscales the lost lane, or a fed bruiser or assassin jungler, you can gank and collect the shutdown gold provided you are able to do it with no expectation of a follow-up from your ally. Do not attempt this if you are a tank jungler. And that wraps it up for the jungling strategies on how to manage your losing lanes. Now, I would like to receive some feedback on the content and the quality of these videos, so feel free to leave some suggestions or ideas in the comment section below.